Hi. We got me and Paula here to talk about kind of some organizational things, whether it's team organization or parts organization or room organization. And so we're just going to kind of share how we do it, because we do things very, very differently from each other. And this is just two of the possible ways. There's so many ways to organize the parts and the things that you have. So I'm going to run through my stuff because I'm a little less prepared than Paula is with hers. So here's just a quick little snapshot of my room. I actually have two fields in my room. I've got a main field in the front and my second field in the back. But it is elevated only by a foot because my basement room had really low ceilings, so you can barely walk on the field without smacking your head on something. So I wanted to elevate it for some additional storage, and I was able to do that. I've got all sorts of things stored that I only use once in a while down there. This is a pretty big change from where I started, which was with absolutely no space. And I had to set everything up every single time that I wanted to meet with my teams or practice. So we've come a long ways, but we try to make the most of what we've got. Just a snapshot of some of the kind of tools that we use. This is called a swag bandsaw table. You can find those pretty easily both on Amazon or on their website, I believe. And then they're all set up for specific bandsaws to work with. So you set up your bandsaw, you've got your nice little table. You can easily cut Vex parts, without having to drag the Dremel out for every little thing that there is. My team also invested in a small little sander. It's really nice to be able to cut something on the bandsaw and then immediately pop over, sand off those rough edges, those sharp edges, and away you go. We have a drill press that we're still working on fixing back up, and then a little vise to hold things that we might need to, say, cut or whatever it happens to be. With my teams, I have a more communal approach where everything is kind of a shared resource, and it's up to the teams to kind of pull from that however they need to. So, this is the spacers that everybody is pulling from to use, or the bin for standoffs that everybody from the organization is using. That's how I have found works best for my teams. I have anywhere from 5 to 8 teams in a season. So my room either has lots of space and it's super comfy, or it gets really cozy really fast. My teams, we just this summer switched over to Torx screws. We purchased the color-coded ones from robosource.net. To me, it just made sense because that just made organization that much faster. To put like sizes with like sizes without having to spend too much thought on it. So I have all my screws stored in these bins, and then every team has their own small little Stanley storage bin that they use, and then they pull out just the sizes and just the pieces that they need for their robot. So just the 1/2 inch or 3/8 or 1 1/4 inch, whatever it is. So they only pack and they only have what they need, and they bring that from tournament to tournament or whatever. I personally only put the Nylox out readily accessible because the Keps nuts and the standard nuts just aren't used that much when a Nylock is pretty superior to what else you're going to find. One other thing I want to point out, shafts to me was one of my biggest spots of mess. Everything gets cut into all sorts of different sizes, and there's no way to sort it super nicely by everything having its own size. So I just went 1/2 inch increments. So a student, if they're going to put a shaft away, which they're supposed to, they can grab a shaft, they put it on the ruler I have taped to the counter here so it doesn't walk away. They go, oh, it's 2 3/4 inches. So then they find the little bin that's got the 2.5 to 3 inch shafts in it. They put it in the spot, and now it's accessible for everybody else. And I've got all sorts of other stuff. These are all my super small cut parts, motors, inserts, wires, depending on. And those are just wrapped with standard Amazon super cheap cable wraps that disappear if they disappear, and I don't lose any sleep over it. Once again, sticking with kind of the communal theme, all the metal that my teams use is all sorted on a pegboard. Everything up top is 5-hole increments, so 35, 30, 25, 20, so on and so forth. And then by style, 2 wide, 3 wide, 5 wide, angle, and so on and so forth. The next row is everything that's in between, so 34 hole to 31 hole, all whatever size works and whatever's needed. You can see all the wheels we have open and available, and then any of the steel parts, which we have a lot less of, are down at the bottom of the pegboard. And I have my junk corner. This holds my Vex IQ kits that I use for summer camps for IQ, tournament supplies when I go help host tournaments, boxes for airplanes that are of the right size, and just kind of everything else that still needs to find a home somewhere when I get a chance to. Normally, this is what our tables are supposed to look like, and this is what they devolve into. So I have developed what's called the cone of shame. If I ever notice that a table has gotten, has turned into a disaster, they get the cone of shame, which is an old in the zone cone that is all marked up and says shame on you. Whatever, I'm not a nice person about it. But they are banned from working on their robot or doing anything further until it has been cleared and checked by one of the mentors that help run our team. So normally when we go to tournaments, we really just have to pack one of these. This was a design another coach in my district found and ordered supplies for, and I think I got all 4 of these boxes for about $200 some total. And the bottom side is a 20-inch by 20-inch box or something like that. You can put your robot in there, plenty of space for it. Maybe a laptop can squeeze in there too. And then there's a top compartment to put tools, storage containers, whatever else you might need, and makes everything real nice and handy. Everything closes up. It's got latches on the side so you can lock it up. That can be handy at Worlds if you don't have the ability to maybe shuttle your robot back and forth every time. We will lock it up with everything we got, chain it to a table, and pray. But it just depends on what you're going to do. And that kind of covers up my stuff. Got a question? If I fly to Worlds, I use these boxes. So these are my flying robot boxes because those are small. You have to have, what is it? Is it 62-inch total? Yeah, linear. And so these boxes are like 20 inches wide on the outside. So 20 by 20 by 20, so they fit under that. Whereas these boxes are much, much larger. These go in a trailer of a bus. Yeah, no, I bought these off RoboSource, and of course we get there for the first year. This year was their first time using them, and every sticker they found ended up on the outside of the boxes. Whatever, it's just life. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I organize stuff. Once again, I'm a very communal person. I just think that's kind of the best and most organized way. I used to do stuff more individual, and I found that people would be missing 3/8 screws, and then people started stealing from other people to get the screw sizes they need, or I don't know. I went communal, and it works pretty good for me. Paula's going to tell you a little bit about how she runs things. She's got a lot of experience. She's pretty good at this stuff.
All right, thanks, Joe. Except for I am not good about remembering the appropriate adapter for presenting. So Joe kindly grabbed all of the stuff for us. So, oops, how do I start this over? Okay, so I am going to kind of scroll back a little bit further to team roles. And, for our teams, the optimum, I feel, is probably 4 to 5 team members per team. You obviously can have fewer than that. You may have more than that. But I felt like 4 to 5 is a really, really good number so that everybody stays engaged and has a specific job that they cover throughout the whole season. And some of the things, the different responsibilities, these are things when I have students apply for the season, they tell me and tell the other coaches what they would like to be in charge of. And when they do that, we assign them a role. We divide them into teams based on personality, experience, their strengths, also recommendations from other teachers, etc. And so that is kind of how we roll in our program. That doesn't mean that students have to be locked into that particular team, but it is important for you to know as a new coach that if you have a team member that starts out on the drive team and has competed at least in one tournament as a drive team member, they may not switch to another sister team. That's really important for you to know. But within an actual one team, they may certainly change roles. There's nothing against that. So there's a builder, programmer, whether the programmer is C++, Python, Block. I know that as 6th graders, I've got middle school and high school. We've got 8 teams this year, 5 at the high school, 3 at the middle school. And because many of them have had experience with block programming, that is the thing that I offer out to them right away as a 6th grader. And I have never had a student say, yes, we want to learn continuous block. They always choose to do C++. It doesn't matter. I've seen high school teams at the state level do very well with block programming. So if you're a new coach, don't worry about what level. Just understand there are other levels out there, and there's all kinds of programming help. We've actually recorded some help sessions for you as far as programming. The driver team, engineering notebook, we covered in a former camp class. CAD, we do like it if there's one person on each team that is able to CAD. That is a great skill set for our students to learn. But we do have a few teams with 8 teams. We have a few that just don't have a CAD member. Online challenges are very fun and important and a way to get kids engaged. And then there's a social media, networking, scouting, those types of things that it is really important for our students to know it's not just about the main driver. It's not just about the builder. It's about everybody working as a team, because when they go out into the workforce, they are going to be working as a team almost inevitably. So that's a really important thing that we want to instill in them at a young age. So these are some of the things that I'll be covering. I will be covering drivers. I do use the MIP, and I'm still old school. I know that you mentioned that you switched over to the Torque Star drivers. A lot of people are starting to do that. I still haven't switched over yet. It's probably something I'll be forced to do, or my kids are going to want to do pretty soon. But we order from MIP. They're a great, stronger alloy. They don't strip out as well, but that's just something that we personally have used in our program. Whoopie-doo, where'd I go? There we go. So this kind of tells you, I will have a link. I'll have a link to all of the stuff that we can add to the website. Needle nose pliers, white cutters, wrenches, those types of things. But then as a program, we have certain things that everybody uses, and I'm going to take you on a little bit of a tour of our robotics lab. But I do want to preface kind of how I started. You know, I don't have an engineering background, PLTW. I am a chemistry physics teacher, and some of that stuff was new to me. So if you see things in here like that's not how it's supposed to be, that's just how I've done it, and it's worked well for our program. We too started in a side room of the media center that barely fit a 12 by 12 field. And so we were there for 2 years, and it was scrunched, and I made friends with our custodian, and he found a dark, gross, dirty corner of the basement that nobody used except for storage, and whitewashed everything for me. There was standing water in a corner. There was electrical cords draping. I really don't even know how it was up to code that we could be down there. It was 60 degrees or 90 degrees, but we were there for 3 years, 4 years maybe, and it flooded one year. We had 8 inches of water on the floor. That's how we started, and we still had success. And so you don't have to start with a big fancy robotics lab, but a few years ago our school remodeled. We had some success, and our administrators, school board really wanted to highlight that. So they built us a beautiful robotics lab next to my classroom. This is our Writing from the Commons, the main entrance to the school. There are individual little lab stations for each team. Each team has their own building area. I will come back to these stations later as I go through my little presentation. There's our workspace or cutting area, resource table. All of our teams have their own kind of area. I run this as a class as well. And so my students know they have to pick up after themselves, and it's a robotics lab. So this kind of is the cubby area that we use for storing our robots. Kind of a cool thing. This is where the working robots, the chassis, they've got the drivetrain all put together, etc. The bigger parts that don't fit in the storage container, this is where they put those. If you're wondering, these are just kind of some programming robots. One of our Vex Minnesota people designed these. They're made for programming, outfitted with the sensors. I've got classes and my robotics teams that use these to learn how to program, and then when the competition team robot is ready to go, it's easier for them to go ahead and program. So it's kind of a quick tour of our robotics lab, and I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you and kind of share with you some of the other tools that we use. My teams are organized by color. Now, I like your approach with the communal. We didn't have anywhere to store our robots. Like I said, we were in small space. And so we started with these DeWalt systems. I know they have Milwaukee systems. We personally really like these. They're easy, and each team takes theirs to a competition. It might be a bit of overkill, but each team is learning responsibility on their own to make sure they've got the stuff covered. The bottom one is a little bit bigger. That's where their electronic, their cords go, power strips, their Fastenal box with all of their nuts, bolts, screws, all that kind of stuff, and their toolbox. The middle one, that's their working box. That's where, like I said before, when we started early on, we didn't have cubbies for them to store things. And even now, the cubbies necessarily aren't big enough for all the parts. And so the main robot goes in the cubby, but then all of the little parts they collect and they put in this little middle bin, and it's stored right at their station. This is an extra bin for their computers, etc., to keep them safe. And then we also have this top bin, which is their electronics box. Here in Upper Midwest, we sometimes leave at 4 in the morning on a Saturday for a tournament, and it's 20 below zero, and you cannot take electronics outside and leave them in the bus trailer. And so this is the electronics box that the kids have. They know they have to grab that, take that on the bus, and be responsible for that. This is what I mean when I say a team is organized by color. So I've got 8 teams. There are 8 different colors in our robotics lab. And so these are the basic tools that every single team has. They've got 2 different size drivers, some wrenches, needle nose plier, some nut driver. Why am I having a hard time with that today? Sorry. And a wire cutter. And so this is what we do to mark them with color. Every single one of them has a color. I got tired of event partners contacting us. Did you guys leave this or leave that here? Because it was by your station, and sure enough, it would be our teams. And so now this tells me, the Skeeter bots, they left this driver at the competition. So we don't have a code of shame. We have kind of a bucket of shame. And like all those little parts at the end of a practice that you just don't feel like grabbing out and putting in we have a little bin, we kind of throw that in. And if someone does something I don't like, that's what they get to sort out, because that's how I roll. I'm not very nice. That's all right. This is what I meant by this other storage, and I kind of already covered that. This is a little messier than it normally is. We had summer demonstrations and kept some of our world robots together, and getting ready for the Mall of America, kind of ripped them apart, and they're still kind of all over the place. But this is where we store our robots for the season. This is how we travel to tournaments. I really, really like your storage rolling box, Joe. I think those are great. To have that little compartment at the top, I think is fantastic. This is just a design we saw early on. I think Mankato West had them the first time we saw them. And I just had a parent kind of come up on their own with the design. It's about 24 by 24, and the inside is about 21 inches by 21 inches. It's padded with some of the old foam mats, or you can also buy those at a superstore, whatever. And we put big casters. I do recommend, if you do build rolling boxes, to get big casters, because the little casters are a little bit more likely to freeze up, and they can damage hallway floors, gym floors, etc. So I would really recommend the larger casters. They're a little bit more expensive, but definitely worth it. We use these at tournaments. We pack, not only does a robot fit in there, trophies, whatever, kit design, decorations and stuff can also fit in there. We also use these in our robotics lab because when kids are programming on the field, they put the laptop here, they can roll it over to the field, and then they can sit a computer right next to the field where they're working on their programming. So it works out quite well, but those are really handy to have. We don't have airplane boxes. We've been fortunate enough that parents have driven to Worlds for us, so we're lucky. This is the raised playing field, that super awesome custodian that whitewashed that gross dungy dungeon for us. Also built us a platform. This platform is the standard height that you would find at Worlds or our state tournament here in Minnesota, which I think are all state regional tournaments elevated too? They must be. Yeah. Okay, and so it's super awesome because there's great storage under there. I don't have the plans for these, but it's not that difficult. 2x4s, 4x4s, some particle board, etc. But we also have another, one of our old metal fields underneath there, because in the heat of a season, when we start getting going and teams have, October, November are really rolling and working on those autons, everybody wants to be on the field. So we pull out that other field. We have about a foot and a half of space to walk around everything, but it's awesome and the kids love it, and it's worth it to have that extra practice field. This is just a link for the band saw. We use 24-tooth band saw blades, and I think you have the newer version of the swag table where there's actually a plate. I've found this older one that I've had for probably 6 years now probably. It's hard to change the blade when that blade breaks, but we manage. It's awesome. I'll have that link on there for you as well. We have a drill press that we utilize with a step bit. This step bit is to ensure that the holes that the students build for the heavy duty shafts are exactly where they need to be and the exact right size, and so that has been a really handy addition. This whole thing was under $200. I think those step bits are expensive. They're like $35, but they're fabulous. I have had them disappear out of my lab, so I'm now they're in a locked filing cabinet with some of my other special stuff, and so kids have to request that to be able to use it. We have a sander, although I really like your tabletop sander. That's cool. But the thing that I like about this is sometimes you've already got your robot built and they have to cut something off, and this sander is really nice because it's hard to manipulate a whole entire robot on it. So this is a really nice handheld sander that we've found is really beneficial and easy to utilize. Let's see, what else do I have in here? I think that's it for that, but I do want to show you some other pictures, some other things that we do for organization. So I'm not going to pull that one up. That was, well, I guess I'm going to have to now, aren't I? Sorry. I'm trying. Okay, so this is how we organize our metal. We've got 1x2x1, 1x3x1, 1x5x1, linear rail, chassis, some of the steel stuff down here, alumina is up here, plate, 1x, that kind of stuff. But we do 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11, and then full length pieces. One thing, if you're going to have an organizing system like this, is make sure these bins some of them you want to be stackable. Some you buy are not stackable, so be careful with that. Some of them are 24 inches deep, which is really what you want for some of the full length pieces, and some are 18 inches deep, which are a little bit better for gears and that type of stuff if you have a lot of those on hand. So just be ready for that. Oh, here we go. I'm still learning. Okay, this is how we organize the team. We have Fastenal boxes like this that each team has one. That's where they have all their screws, nuts, bolts, etc. These are the tool boxes that we utilize. I'll show you a little picture of that. This is a messy one at the end of a season after Worlds that needed to be cleaned up. This is I'm kind of OCD when it comes to the parts, and we did not start out communal. We started out with everybody having Fastenal boxes just because of the way that the lab was so spread out and weird by the time we got these in the basement. So I actually took did what I wanted to, had one organized, and then I took a picture of it and I laminated those, and every single one of those has laminated. The other part of this is I know that you can order the color-coded screws, which is fabulous. If that's what your program is doing, that's awesome. But one of the things, I have all of the names of the parts typed in there. I think it's really important for our students, not that thingy, no, the rubber link or the 3/8 inch screw. I think that is really important skill for our students to have, and I hold them to that. This is an electronics box, how we have it organized. The only reason I have this picture, yes, it's kind of a mess. It's not normally like this, but this right here, I keep the cushions or packaging that our controllers come in, because what did you call those? Joysticks. That's not what you called them earlier. Thumbsticks. All right. Joysticks, whatever. I do know that if you're not careful with those, they can tend to get worn out and stick and cause problems, and then your remote is shot. And so I've found by keeping these, it keeps them a little bit more protected, and so that you're not running into issues and having to replace those all the time. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend. Another thing I see for coaches having an issue with is battery storage. This is definitely not the best idea for battery storage, but it's something that we've found is really helpful. These yellow containers were just left over out of my little DeWalt Traveler. And so this is a great way. We've got each team has 3 batteries. They have them plugged in. It's an easy way for us to check, are they fully charged? Unplug them, because we know it's not great to leave lithium batteries plugged in. That is the last thing I want to do, is burn down my nice new building. And so by putting them in there, that's a nice way to keep them organized. It is a little cumbersome to get them ready for competition, but in between competitions, it's been a pretty nice system to keep those organized and charged efficiently. Let's see, there are a couple other things I wanted to show you. As helps for the students, obviously we want to be a student-centered program. And so early on, I don't know, back when I used to have time in the summer to do fun things, one of the things I thought was really fun was to look on the VEX website and look for some of the tutorials, some of the different helps. So I made these little laminated 3-ring on a magnet on our whiteboards, and those each team has as a reference, and it can help them in the engineering notebook for torquing, gearing up, gearing down, how to do the gear ratios, etc. I also, we create the match setup, and we have these just in laminated pockets that are easy for the kids to grab and set up the field, kind of keeps things organized. This was my brainiac idea, and I would highly recommend you don't try this, but I had tried PVC pipe to transport all of our signs, and it worked great for 3 or 4 years until the kids dropped them several times. Now I can't get them to stick together, and I don't want to make new ones. So if you're thinking about trying PVC pipe, don't do it. It doesn't work. Our students wanted and begged for using pneumatics. It's a great addition to the competition now that we can use pneumatics and motors at the same time. I took this right from the VEX website. I created these documents, and it literally has a picture of all the pieces. They had to learn the pieces before they can have one of the pneumatics kits, and they need to be able to call it by name, again, because I'm kind of a stickler and meanie about that. And the last 2 documents I do want to share with you. One of the things that used to drive me nuts is a team going up to a field and they run their autonomous, and it's like, what are you doing? I don't know what their robots do, but when it crosses the auton line, I know something's definitely not right. And so one of the things that I picked the wrong program. So we tried to address that. We created this little document here. It's got the different slots. Every team is supposed to have one of these on the top of their rolling bin, and it reminds them which slot and which program that they should be using. Again, they have to know them. They know these things. They fill it out. It just is one of the things that we felt, especially at the middle school level, kind of help them mentally have a visual reminder. And then the last thing I want to share with you that we created was a competition checklist. As you stated, you're not sugarcoating anything. These kids need to be responsible, and that's kind of how we roll at our program. Yeah, I know, right? Well, that's right, baby. And so we created these competition checklists, and this is something, there's a pocket of them. Every captain has to take one for their team, and they literally go I got to remember how to make this bigger. How do I make it bigger? I can't. Anyways, you maybe can't read this, but it literally goes through that didn't help. Single thing that the teams have to pack. It tells them which part of their competition stuff they have to pack it in. And I think, so we have shown up at tournaments and they didn't have a remote controller. That is unfortunate. I'm not sure how you're going to compete, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. And that's kind of our answer to everything, really teaching these kids responsibility and how to take ownership. And so this is kind of my way. You have a checklist, check it, and utilize it. We've got all kinds of helps as adults. Works for Santa Claus, yeah. And so this is just kind of another thing that we've done in our program to help the kids stay organized and to help the kiddos take responsibility. Oh, one last thing. Safety-wise, we love the bandsaw. That's like the kid. First of all, if you're going to cut, you have to ask permission unless you're one of the veteran high school team members. The other thing is, if I catch you cutting metal the same size as is in one of those bins, you get the box of shame, not the cone, but the box of shame. If I walk by the bandsaw and I see that this little pedal here is still plugged in and there is no team member that is cutting, they lose the bandsaw. And it only takes 1 or 2 times for students to have to cut metal by hand before that stops happening. It takes just a clearing of the throat sometimes, whatever. And then this metal that ends up down here, that is only metal that is unusable. Anything other than that needs to be picked out of there, and that gets put and sorted into those bins because that metal is expensive. And why cut metal if you have something that'll be utilized? And then I'm just going to do a little bit of this because I think it's pretty awesome. We've got a ton of support from our school. We are grateful. I know that not everybody is in that. My hope for you and prayer for you is that your program is successful. Your administrations and school boards, whatever, are supportive of this. Ours are so supportive. They've got banners for Worlds for us, and they proudly display our state robotics trophies that are world qualifiers. They made sports, and as you can see, there are quite a few robotics and not quite so many athletic ones. Did I say that out loud? I might have. And then here are some other trophies that we have, and then all the other trophies are in our classroom or in the robotics lab. But are there any questions? Oh, we're not live anymore, are we? Oh, we're not. Okay. So we just thank you for joining this coaches workshop on tools and organization. If you are interested in any coaching helps, we have The World Unvexed on YouTube. Please check that website out. What? Leave a comment and subscribe, please. That would be awesome. But there are a lot of coaches that did a lot of recordings, and we'd love to be able to help you. So kudos. Have a great day.